Well, welcome back, folks. Today's going to be the final review of the repair to the rear plastic fender for the Suzuki TS50 project. This is not going to be a how-to or a tutorial on how to use the tools that we're going to talk about here in just a second. Really, this is just a review of the finished product as I'm getting it ready to send it off for painting. This is the original fender. For those of you that have been with me for a while, you've seen this a number of times before. I use this for testing purposes, to test the techniques that I was going to use. By way of reminder, here are the tools that I used. I reviewed these in previous videos. This is the wire welder or staple welder, and looks like a hot shoe is what it is that you melt the plastic with. I used both of these tools to make this repair on the fender that I reviewed in the previous video. I'm sharing this particular piece with you. This is the original fender again off the TS50 as I received the project a few years ago. And I use this for just testing purposes for the staples, as you can see here. I left some of them long. I think you can see right there in the video. I didn't cut them off. And I did a lot of testing. As you can see, where I've cut them all off, you see those little silver dots? That's the end of the staples. And you can see here and here, I did both the wavy type and then the straight type. This piece actually was entirely broken away, and I put it back in place. And you can see I put a piece of stainless steel screen on the back to support it. And I spent probably a couple of hours fiddling around with this, and you can see here what the staples look like when they went in. The main thing, there's two things I discovered using the staples, and that is, one is don't go too deep, because if you go too deep, it looks like this. It goes right through, obviously, and the threshold you have to be too deep, too shallow or too deep is pretty fine, so you got to pay attention. I found that when I'm pushing the staple in, once it just disappears below the surface here, stop pushing it down, because if you try to go too much further, you end up with this, and you can see staples went too far through. And that was okay, happened here as well. And that was okay because that's why I tested on this piece and tried to develop my technique here before I moved over to the actual fender that I'm going to use for the project. So if you went through too far here, I think you can see right there the wavy staple. Some cases they call those nails, I think. And so I just tried all different techniques, experimented with the depth. The other thing that I discovered is once you push the staple in and you reach the depth that you think you want a penetration, let off on the trigger. That being, now we're talking, of course, about this tool. You just let off on the trigger and just hold it in place for a count of 3, 4, 5 to let it cool, and then pull or remove the tool. If you pull the tool away from the staple too fast, what will happen is you'll just pull the staple right back out of the plastic. And what you want to do is allow it to congeal and start to cool so it holds the staple in place. So don't go too deep, and allow the staple to cool for 3 to 5 seconds before you try to remove the tool. In terms of removing the leg, even though the instructions say you can break them off with your finger by pushing on them, I found that didn't really work very well. So what I end up using, and I think I shared this tool with you once before, is this flush cutting tool that was used in my model railroad work, and use it typically to cut off parts off a sprue if you're building a model. You could also use it, I think, to nip rail if you're laying rail, that kind of thing. So I use this to cut these legs off because it is a flush cutting tool. And the way I did that, let me demonstrate. I found you have to cover these legs up when you cut them off because they fly and they will hit you in the face. So either you need to use a face shield, certainly eye protection, which I typically use eye protection anyway. What I found was the best technique for me is I just took the flush cutting plier, put it over the staple leg like this, and just put my hand over the top and cut it off. And then it just dropped, it hit my hand and dropped rather than flying all over the place. And you can see right there what's left over. And I'll do that again. Just get it nice and flush, hold my hand over the top, and cut it. And that's what you're left with. And then I used a sander, or sanding, I should say. And first I touched these legs up with a file, because they are stainless steel, so they're fairly hard. And I just filed them down gently until it reached the surface level, and then I sanded it. And as you can see here, they're nice and smooth. There's nothing sticking up there at all. And again, you can see I was experimenting there. I didn't do really anything different on the inside that you haven't seen before, except for I used a piece of stainless steel mesh here when I was experimenting with replacing this broken out piece. In reality, if I wanted to continue with this piece, I probably could make it work, but I'm not going to bother, obviously. I'm going to hang on to this. I'm not going to get rid of it. It probably could be saved, but I'm not going to put the effort into it at this point. But what we are going to talk about is this piece, and this is the final piece that I used the techniques that I just demonstrated and discussed to affect the final repair. And I only worked down in this area here because that's the only area that needed repair. And if you recall from the previous video, there was a crack. This is totally cracked through right here. You can just barely see remnants of that, I think, right there. And this had some crazing or surface cracking. It did not go all the way through. So I used 3 straight line staples, 1, 2, and 3. I used on the back, and we'll come back to this mesh here in a moment, I used that foil tape on the back here to pull that crack together. I actually had my wife help me also to hold it. She held it like this with her fingers, and then I did the staple because I still wasn't happy with how tight I could close up that crack by using just tape. So she's very willing to help with things like this. So she just held it. We actually did it like this, and then I used the tool, and you can see the legs of the 3 staples. And then of course I just cut them off with the pliers. Flush cutting pliers or nippers. Then on the back, I applied the mesh, and that was I was using the other tool. I was getting a little short on the screen mesh, so what I did, originally I was thinking I was going to go all the way around something like this. I was getting a little short on mesh, so since there really is no damage in here, and I was mostly concerned about right here and right here, I had just enough mesh left to make a U shape, like you can see, I think, like this and like this, and cut it out and fit it carefully, and then I embedded it into the fender, as you can see. And I probably could have gone a little bit deeper. I wanted to be careful though, because what I've learned with that hot shoe tool, if you overheat in there, it's a little bit like welding metal. If you get one area too hot, especially when it's thin, it'll start to warp on this side. So I literally used a metal welding technique. When I weld thin metal, I would heat this section in a bed, then I'd maybe move over here, then over here, then over here, and work my way around so that I didn't overheat one area too much. I wanted it just hot enough to soften the plastic so I could push the mesh down in, and then I stopped, and then I moved to another spot. And it didn't take very long, and you can see the result there. Again, I could have gone a little bit deeper. Yeah, probably could have. Am I going to worry about it? No, because on this side, when it's painted and finished, you'll never even know it's there, and it provides the reinforcement that I was looking for. On this side, I did take a piece of black ABS, and I took the hot shoe tool and I just softened the surface just a little bit, and then melted right onto it additional plastic, and you might be able to just see the outline of that right there, where I added actually a little bit of material from an ABS plastic fitting, pipe fitting. We talked about that in previous videos. I did that here and here, and then I just sanded it back. That's all I did. And it's 95% complete in terms of sanding, especially right here. It's very smooth, flows real nicely. I might touch it up a little bit more. And this one might need a little bit more sanding yet, but it's pretty close. And I think you can see it, what it looks like right there. So I'm quite happy with the way that repair or series of repairs turned out for this piece. As I indicated, I'm probably 95% done with this fender right now before I will pack it up and send it off to the painter. I'm expecting you will not see this part again until I get it back from the painter, which it'll be sometime down the road. I have not talked to him and connected with him on what his lead time is right now, but typically he runs 4 to 6 weeks, depending, of course, how busy he is. So even if I send it off now, it could easily be 5, 6, 7 weeks before I would have the parts back and you'd be able to see them on video. And I will do a follow-up video when I get the parts back. So that's going to be it for the review of this fender. I'm not going to remove any more of the paint. I want the painter to remove now what he wants, and he can see what he's dealing with. That's generally what he prefers. He really doesn't like the customer doing body repair much. This probably would be an exception, but other than that, he likes to do his own repairs so he can be responsible and accountable for that. So that's going to be it for this video. Again, next time you see it, it'll be finished and painted, I think. Side cover is done that I had to repair. The front fender is done. Probably will shoot another video on that. I don't know if I will or not. I'm trying to get this wrapped up so I can get it all off to the painter. And because this is the last major component is the paint work, the tins of the body work for this project. So that's it. I wanted you to see the repair that I did and how it turned out. I'm quite pleased with this fender versus having used this one, which again was probably salvageable. But for the price I paid for this, and I learned a new technique, that being how to use this tool and even this tool. And they were not expensive, not a lot of money. And I'm happy I took that route. So it's going to be it for this video today, folks. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.